All right, so first thing is I removed this function here. My CPU is actually starting to go a little crazy, and the fans are starting to kick on my computer to try to cool it down. So yeah, don't run this on update for very long. It will potentially, I don't know, it might crash your computer. I'm not really sure. Um, anyway, one thing that I want to do right now is I want to make it so that the food never appears right on top of my character. I want to create this little kind of bubble around my character where the food cannot spawn. And actually, I'll just show that. Let me just do it. Even though this is going to be bad, I'm just going to do it for just a minute, just so we can see how it. See it. It will eventually place food on top of my character. So we don't want to do that. We don't want the food on top of our character. So we'll take that out. I want to create a little bubble where the food cannot spawn right on top of my character. Now, if I were to do this as a square, it would probably be a little bit easier. I'm going to do it as a circle, though. So we're going to need to calculate distance. We're going to need a little math here. So function calculate distance. We're just going to create a helper function that is going to calculate the distance. This will be a number. So whenever we're creating a new function and we actually have parameters, we need to type the parameters. So I'm going to type them as numbers. They use numbers in TypeScript rather than integer. Number and y2 and numbers. So essentially we're going to get the xy coordinates of the player and the xy coordinates of the food, and we're going to measure the distance. So it could be, diagonal distance, straight, whatever. We're just going to measure the distance there. So first we're going to have the dx, which is going to equal x2 minus x1. You probably have done this in math class at some point, hopefully. I don't know which math class it is. Trigonometry? I don't know. Y1, it's been a while. But this gives us our dx and dy. And then to get the distance, we go const distance equals math.square root. And it's going to be dx times, dx squared. We'll just say dx times dx plus dy times dy. It's dx squared plus dy squared. I can't remember right off the top of my head how they do squares. I think it's like math.square or something, or math.power. But that's probably less typing there. Anyway, just doing it that way. Now we return the distance. Okay, so now we know how to get the distance here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a distance here as well. Let distance equal 0. By default, I'm going to set it to 0. And then we will say while distance is less than, and then we're going to create a little threshold here. So we'll say let threshold equal, let's say, I don't know exactly what's going to look good. So we're going to have to test this, but we're going to say while the distance is less than the threshold, which means while this is closer, it's too close, then we want to redo this process. So I'm going to have the x and y calculated inside of here, and then we're going to say distance equals calculate distance, and it's going to be x, y, and then player sprite.x, player sprite.y. Now, this is kind of confusing what this might do here, if it even works. What did I screw up here? These are going to say they can't find the name. So we're going to have to declare these up here. And then we're going to say like this. It's a scoping problem. We scoped it inside of the while loop, so this didn't have access to those, so we do it here instead. All right. So now let's try doing this and see if this actually worked how I expected. If it did, we should see nothing appear right around the player. Yeah, we can see that actually. It's not quite appearing on top of the player at any point here. It's appearing right around the player. That's exactly what we want. I'm going to increase the number though, because I don't actually think 20 is enough. So let's increase the threshold to 50. And this will create a much better bubble around our character. Look at that, much, much better. That's going to prevent it from spawning very close at all to our character. We're creating this kind of distance around our character. How do I explain how this works? Now the other thing is now it's not filling in over here very well because there's not much space over here, so the margin for error is very, very, very tiny here. So actually if I just move first, now we'll see the nice bubble around our character here as it fills in. So wherever our character is at the time that it spawns in, that's going to be where the bubble is going to be checked. So some of these are not. What's happening is, how can I explain this exactly correctly? I'm getting a random X and a random Y that are within our board, and then I'm checking the distance that that random X and random Y is versus the player X and the player Y. If that distance is too small, as in lower than this threshold, then it's going to do it again. It's going to create a new random number and then check that one. It's going to keep repeating that process until it finds one that's valid, until it finds an X and Y that actually is not within that bubble. So it will repeat this process until it finds one. It should only have to repeat once or twice at most because our screen's so big, but it's basically a way of preventing the food from spawning right on top. There's some other ways to do this. This way is kind of a brute force method and not super computationally efficient, but it's kind of cool, so I'm going to go with it anyway. So that's how we can ensure that our whatever we spawn in doesn't spawn right on top of our player.